Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Together. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Ashe, 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 ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Funga alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, welcome to our village.
Please be seated. We welcome you to our 2017 Fall Convocation at United Theological Seminary. For our staff and faculty, for our president, our board, for students, staff, for all those who are in love with this place, we give you thanks. We give you thanks for your presence here. We give you thanks for your gifts here, but also that this is a momentous occasion every single year, but particularly for Drs. Yetunde and Dr. Wheeler as well, but for our whole community to receive them as well. We welcome you here in this. This is a specifically, usually we have it on the back of our chapel that we're going to do everything on the spectrum in terms of worship, from particular traditions to interreligious gatherings, that we come not to mute our particularities, but to live into them even more fully. As you come today, we ask you to offer your full selves, your gifts, your experience, your travels here, but also your ability to bless, to give favor, to show upon those people that are welcomed into our village, into our community, that they are loved, that their gifts are welcome, and that we welcome them to receive and also to be touched by them as well. Let us join together in our worship.
Please join in our call to gather the Metta Sutta, and please read the words printed in bold. This is to be done by one skilled in aims, who wants to break through to the state of peace, be capable, upright, and straightforward, easy to instruct, gentle, and not conceited, content and easy to support, with few duties, living lightly, with peaceful faculties, masterful, modest, and no greed for supporters. Do not the slightest thing that the wise would later censure. Think, happy and secure. May all beings be happy at heart. Whatever beings there may be, weak or strong, without exception, long, large, middling, short, subtle, blatant, seen and unseen, near and far, born and seeking birth, may all be happy at heart.
Let no one deceive another,
or despise anyone anywhere, or through anger or irritation, wish for another to suffer. As a mother would risk her life to protect her child, her only child, even so should one cultivate a limitless heart with regard to all beings. With goodwill for the entire cosmos, cultivate a limitless heart, above and below and all around, unobstructed, without enmity or hate.
whether
Standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as one is alert, one should be resolved on this mindfulness. This is called a sublime abiding here and now, not falling into wrong views, being virtuous and endowed with insight, by discarding attachment to sense desires. Never again is one reborn.
I invite you in this time, as the bowl sings and as you hear the tone, to free your hands, free your hearts, and to center yourselves in this moment and in this time.
Good morning and welcome. I am glad that you have chosen to make United your community. Welcome to new students, new faculty, new staff, new trustees, new friends. Welcome to those of you who are returning. Thank you for entrusting this part of your journey to United. Others this morning will undoubtedly quote great masters of theological thought. I, on the other hand, wish to focus on a fictional character's wisdom, that of Professor Kingsfield, a Harvard Law School professor of contract law in the movie The Paper Chase. When speaking on the first day of classes to his first-year students, his quote was, "You teach yourself the law, but I train your minds. You come in here with a skull full of mush. You leave thinking like a lawyer." Now, admittedly, Professor Kingsfield had a bit of Hollywood arrogance, befitting the popular view of a prestigious institution like Harvard. But I believe that the quote focuses on the true value of graduate education. If seminary education was purely about learning content, reading about the thoughts of others, and incorporating a series of esoteric words and concepts into your professional vocabulary, then I might argue that there are better ways of getting that education. But that is only about 20% of the work. maybe less. The real value of your time in seminary relates to the process of becoming truly ready to serve others. That process involves deepening your understanding of yourself, understanding what you believe and why, understanding ways in which your life experiences have impacted your views of yourself and others, confronting some of the scar tissues of life and becoming aware of how it challenges your abilities to serve the needs of others in ministry, in chaplaincy, in leadership, and in community. I had an opportunity last week to meet with a very special woman. She's a woman of deep faith who was raised and practices in the Roman Catholic tradition. One of her children has severe physical, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive challenges. As he reached the age of First Communion in her tradition, she approached her parish priest about helping her son to meet the requirements of this process. Her priest and subsequently the bishop both told her that it was not possible, that because of his challenges, they had nothing for her son in the preparation for First Communion. The rejection further tortured this mother, who was working to manage the challenges of a son who was marginalized by the community, the medical profession, the educational system, and now his connection to her community of faith and to God. Subsequently, a parish priest from another church told her that if it was important to her, he would work with her son and help him achieve the goals. Ultimately, in service to others, the priest conducted a private family service at which the boy was able to make his First Communion. My prayer is that United graduates would consistently take the path of the second priest in finding a way to serve the needs of this woman, her son, and family. I am not talking about saying yes to her request. I am talking about saying yes to her yearning to feel God's love in her son's life. I am talking about empathy, caring, respect, and love. I do not know if her son actually learned the lessons, could recite the passages, or could conceptualize the meaning of his mother's faith. But I am confident that he felt the love of family, his clergy, and something bigger than himself. Much of the work of seminary will not occur in the classroom or the library. It will occur in the contextual placements you will experience. It will occur in the bringing together of your positive intentions and a world that traditionally creates obstacles. And this is perhaps the most difficult challenge for seminarians and those in calls and placements after seminary. Church communities, secular environments, hospitals, and the world are messy, complex, and difficult. Helping a community in spiritual formation is hard, often painful work. At times, it requires both selflessness and self-care at the same time. Personally, I do not care if you can quote scripture or famous theologians when you graduate. I apologize to the faculty. I care that you have done the personal work needed to care for others, and that you have the tools, humility, and personal support structure to create expressions of beloved community. That you understand the covenant of a spiritual leader with their community. Finally, my hope is that you see United as your community, a community that can support you through the wondrous days and the worst existential crises of the path you are on. I wish you a blessed and fulfilling academic year. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the new school year at United. And welcome to our new two professors that will be installed later on this hour. Welcome to partners of our two new professors, Tracy Scott and Victoria Wheeler, who have brought our professors here, sustained them through years and years of difficulty.
Hallelujah.
I'm going to do two things right now. I'm going to introduce Dr. Pamela Ayo Yetunde, and then I'm going to introduce Dr. Edwin Aponte, who will in turn introduce Dr. Demian Wheeler. Dr. Ayo Yetunde is our new Assistant Professor of Pastoral Care and Interreligious Chaplaincy. She comes to us from Columbia Theological Seminary, where she earned a Doctor of Theology in Pastoral Counseling. The title of her dissertation is A New Spelling of Our Names, an exploration of the psycho-spiritual experiences of African American Buddhist lesbians. Dr. Yetunde is also an Audre Lorde scholar. She also went to University of Holy Names, University of Indiana Law School, and Ball State University. Before coming here, she taught at the University of the West. She and Tracy have been here only 2 months, but she has already joined seamlessly the life of the seminary, teaching classes, making connections with both the interfaith community in the Twin Cities and with the chaplain community as well. She also launched the Theology of Prince contest that you may have seen the posters for. Dr. Edwin Aponte is visiting here for the installation of Dr. Wheeler. Dr. Aponte is the executive director of the Louisville Institute, which is the organization that gave us the wonderful gift of Dr. Wheeler. And for him, we are immensely grateful. Dr. Aponte graduated from Gordon College, Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and Temple University. As a cultural historian, he explores faith, spirituality, and culture, especially within the Latina religions, African American religions, and race, ethnicity, and religion. He's the author of Santo, Varieties of Latina Spirituality. He taught history of Christianity and congregational studies at Perkins School of Theology of Southern Methodist University. And previously, he has been Dean and Chief Executive Administrator for Palmer Theological Seminary of Eastern University, Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean at Christian Theological Seminary, and Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean at Lancaster Theological Seminary. Thank you for coming, Dr. Aponte.
Thank you, Dean Tan, for that very generous introduction. You would think I'd be giving an address myself after all that, but don't worry, I am not. I bring you greetings and thanks from the Louisville Institute. Thanks for receiving Dr. Demian Wheeler as a Louisville postdoctoral fellow. The Louisville Institute has 8 programs where we are trying to give away money to pastors and scholars. Our mission is to bring church and academy together, and the postdoctoral fellowship program is one of them. So we give you thanks for receiving one of our postdoctoral fellows. Louisville Institute gives you thanks and congratulations on your wisdom in inviting one of our postdoctoral fellows to join the faculty here at United. You have all kinds of access to the highlights of Dr. Wheeler's background and career. I will just name a couple of them for this occasion. He has a PhD from Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where he specialized in American liberal theology, and especially his research has focused on the Chicago School of Theology and all the streams that flow out of that. He has published a number of journals and articles. He's co-editor of Conceiving an Alternative Philosophical Resources for Ecological Civilization. I have it on good authority that his first book is under review by major university press, and it's looking good and might even be something more bounteous out of that. Everything else is under QT, so you have to talk to Dr. Wheeler about that. But if you are a person who prays or gives good thoughts, that's a direction to send it on that publication. He's also a graduate of Iliff School of Theology and the University of Valley Forge. Dr. Wheeler's address today on this occasion, and it's appropriate with his research and study, is Ode Chicago. Congratulations, Dr. Wheeler.
And now a poem by Marge Piercy called The Tao of Touch. What magic does touch create that we crave it so? That babies do not thrive without it? That the nurse who cuts tough nails and sands calluses on the elderly tells me sometimes men weep as she rubs lotion on their feet? Yet the touch of a stranger, the bumping or predatory thrust in the subway is like a slap. We long for the familiar, the open palm of love, its tender fingers. It is our hands that tamed cats into pets and not our food. The widow looks in the mirror thinking, no one will ever touch me again. Never. Not hold me, not caress the softness of my breasts, my inner thighs, the swell of my belly. Do I still live if no one knows my body? We touch each other so many ways, in curiosity, in anger, to command attention, to soothe, to quiet, to rouse, to cure. Touch is our first language and often our last, as the breath ebbs and a hand closes our eyes.
Good morning. Good morning. Do not be fooled by my title. This is not another pizza-themed convocation address. Old Chicago refers not to the national chain of pizzerias, but to the most cutting-edge school of theology America ever produced. 2 years ago, I laid out my overarching vision for the future of progressive theology. Today, I wish to talk about the specific theological heritage that informs that vision, the Chicago School of Theology. I hope my brief remarks this morning will give you a better sense of my research and scholarship, and even more of who I am theologically. Now, maybe some of you have seen the reference to the Chicago School in my bio and wondered what it was. Well, in the first half of the 20th century, the University of Chicago Divinity School was the hotbed of the most radical kind of theology. To state it as plainly and dramatically as possible, the Chicago School represented the left wing of American theological liberalism. The theologians associated with the Chicago School, George Berman Foster, Shaler Matthews, Shirley Jackson Case, Gerald Burney Smith, Henry Nelson Wyman, Bernard Maitland, and Bernard Loomer, just to name a few, thought of modern theology as nothing short of a new reformation. The Chicago Schoolers put the liberal in liberal theology, viewing innovation as a sign of spiritual maturity and intellectual progress, not apostasy, and stressing that truth claims in religion are validated by reason and experience rather than external authorities such as the Bible or church tradition. They were leading spokespersons of the social gospel movement and public opponents of fundamentalism. They were unflinching advocates of science and democracy, academic freedom, and the higher criticism of Scripture. And they were ardent defenders of historicism, pragmatism, empiricism, and religious naturalism. I will unpack that string of buzzwords momentarily. But first, let me say a quick word about why the Chicago School gets me excited. Why am I so interested and invested in a group of dead and largely forgotten white men? Well, in a word, because the Chicago Schoolers, unlike many other liberal theologians of the day, realized that if modernity was a revolution, then modern theology needed to be revolutionary. I believe we are in the midst of another spiritual revolution. And I believe these early 20th century theological revolutionaries have something vital to teach us. There are 4 aspects of Chicago School theology that I find particularly germane to our current situation. First, the Chicago Schoolers were thoroughgoing historicists. They developed a socio-historical method of interpreting religion, according to which the best means of grasping a tradition or a doctrine is to analyze the social context that gave rise and shape to it, and to track the ever-shifting historical circumstances that spurred its evolution over time. The Chicago Schoolers, in short, historicized religion. So why does religion need to be historicized? Well, for several reasons. For one thing, it reminds us that religious ideas are not eternal truths beamed down from heaven. On the contrary, they are human creations with particular histories, constructed by ordinary people and conditioned by the cultural and socio-political environments in which they emerged. And the religious ideas not only emerge in history, they also evolve through history. The Chicago School historicists powerfully demonstrated that doctrines and religions do not have stable essences. Rather, they are and ought to be continually reimagined for each new time, place, and historical situation. What is more, historicizing religion mitigates both the liberal tendency to ignore and dismiss our traditions and the conservative tendency to romanticize and deify them. As modernistic as they were, the Chicago Schoolers understood that the past supplies the basic resources out of which our theologies and indeed our lives take shape. However, they also understood that our traditions, including our scriptures, are formative habitations, not infallible authorities. But most crucially, historicizing religion challenges the presumption that we belong to the one true divinely established faith. The realization that Christianity and all the religions are products of complex historical circumstances should temper the urge to absolutize them. This is precisely the realization we must come to in our increasingly pluralistic age. Second, besides being historicists, the Chicago Schoolers were pioneers of what's known as empirical theology. Empirical theology is the view that genuine knowledge in religion is attained by observing and rigorously reflecting on evidence supplied by experience. Although, as I'll elaborate in a moment, the Chicago School theologians had a capacious understanding of what constitutes experience. The Chicago empiricists called on modern theology to appropriate the scientific method, contending that theological assertions are working hypotheses, and as such, are fallible, tentative, vulnerable to correction, and justified empirically. Chicago-style empirical theology, in my estimation, is public theology par excellence. It's a form of theology that's genuinely interdisciplinary, academically respectable, fully critical, and empirically focused. And it's capable of overcoming so many of the dualisms that we still cling to. The dualisms between religion and science, between the sacred and the secular, between theology and religious studies, between faith and reason, between nature and spirit. Now, it's critical to point out that the Chicago schoolers were not run-of-the-mill empiricists. They were radical empiricists. Radical empiricism is simply an American tradition of thought that emphasizes the dim, vague, affective, physical, and barely conscious dimension of experience that precedes and underlies sense perception. And for radically empirical theologians, this dimension of experience opens the self to the underlying richness of reality, to its qualities and its values, its density of meaning, and the aesthetic matrix of relation in which we're embedded, its creative unfolding and ultimate mystery. Radical empiricism is important because it insists that we experience much more than what we perceive with our minds and register with our five senses. To quote the Chicago schooler Bernard Maitland, we live more deeply than we can think. The Chicago schoolers' radical empiricism paved the way for a religious naturalism, which is the third aspect of Chicago school theology I wish to highlight. Religious naturalism is a path that could be described as spiritual but not supernatural. As religious naturalists, the Chicago school theologians regarded nature as both exhaustive of reality and worthy of deep reverence and devotion. Religious naturalism, my friends, is currently undergoing a revival. And in my judgment, there are several things that make it a very appealing alternative in the 21st century. To begin with, nature-centered spiritualities like religious naturalism enjoy a heightened ethical urgency in an ecologically imperiled era such as ours. Furthermore, religious naturalists have developed plausible theological responses to modern science and its breathtaking picture of the universe. The Chicago school theologians in particular exposed some of the problems with anthropomorphic conceptions of God and instead conceived of divinity naturalistically, whether as a process within nature or as a symbol for the totality of nature. Nature in all its transcendent splendor and inexhaustible depth, terrifying ambiguity and impenetrable mystery. But most compellingly of all, religious naturalism shows that it is possible and desirable to live a spiritually meaningful existence on a completely naturalistic basis. Supernaturalism, I would argue, is not just intellectually problematic, it's also religiously unnecessary. Nature itself is vast, awesome, beautiful, and mysterious enough to invite religious commitment and to elicit profound spiritual feelings of wonder, thanksgiving, awe, and humility. This is why I call myself a religious naturalist, even a mystical naturalist. Nature is not simply the great outdoors, the planet Earth, or even the cosmos. Nature is the infinite creativity from which we emerged, the sacred ground on which we depend, and the unapproachable void before which we tremble. Fourth and finally, the early Chicago school theologians were pragmatists. Now, pragmatism is not the reduction of truth to whatever works. What pragmatists do affirm is that ideas are tools, which are to be assessed by how well they perform the tasks for which they were created. The Chicago schoolers applied pragmatism to the study of religious beliefs and practices, seeking to ascertain their function and utility in concrete historical settings. The pragmatic value of pragmatism should be obvious. It asks us to judge our religions and theologies in terms of the forms of life they make possible and the consequences they engender in the real world. What ramifications do they have for our children and our children's children? What ramifications do they have for the lives we will impact as scholars, artists, activists, and healers? Do they alleviate suffering and make existence more bearable? Are they humane and liberative? Do they correspond with reality? How effectively do they confront the crises facing our society and our species? Ecological anxieties, state-sponsored hatred and racism, and the ever-looming threat of nuclear annihilation. By their fruits ye shall know them. So, in sum, the Chicago school theologians radicalized American theological liberalism, seeking to make liberal theology more unabashedly modern and historically conscious, more empirically grounded and pragmatically relevant, and more deeply attuned to the mystery, beauty, and sacred depths of this world. Friends, I not only want to keep the legacy of the Chicago schoolers alive, I also want to help write the next chapter of Chicago school theology. And there is no better place in which to do this than United. Indeed, our seminary shares quite a bit in common with the Chicago School. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are a liberal, boundary-pushing, and theologically adventurous bunch. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are allergic to right-wing religion and religious absolutism. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are worldly believers, experiencing the transcendent in the immanent. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are religious moderates who travel a middle road between overbelief and disbelief. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are socially, ethically, and politically minded Christians, insisting that the gospel has something to do with the just ordering of society. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are open to contemporary knowledge and to the ever-changing needs of the world. Like the Chicago Schoolers, we are cultivators of an intelligent, inclusive, non-dogmatic, interreligious, and progressive faith. So, is it too naive or presumptuous to hope that the spirit of old Chicago, of the Chicago School of Theology, will live on at United? In some ways, it already does. I'd like to close with a few words of thanksgiving. First and foremost, I need to thank Victoria, the love of my life, my partner of 24 years, and the mother of our beloved son, Shaler. Yes, we named our only child after one of the Chicago schoolers. It's Victoria's undying love, support, and a whole lot of sacrifice that have allowed me to follow my bliss. I'm deeply thankful to my parents and my family for being a constant source of provision, encouragement, joy, and inspiration. I also owe an unpayable debt of gratitude to Paul Capitz and John Lee for their extraordinary mentorship, and to all of my academic mentors over the last 20 years, especially Gary Dorian, my doctor father, Bill Dean, Sheila Devaney, and the late Del Brown. Many thanks to Ed and the Louisville Institute for taking a chance on a passionate but slightly less than orthodox theologian. And thank you, United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. Thank you, President Zeidner and Dean Ton. Thank you, faculty colleagues and administrative staff. Thank you, board members and alumni. Thank you, students. Thank you for giving me a job. And thank you, more importantly, for giving me an academic and spiritual home. For more than 2 decades, seriously, for more than 2 decades, I have dreamt about becoming a theology professor. Today, that dream has come true. I am profoundly grateful.
If I said ditto, would that suffice? No, that wouldn't suffice? Okay. All right, well, I want to begin by saying that Dr. Ton outed me. Yeah, you outed me. Most people wouldn't know what I wrote my dissertation on, right, had you not said that. But it reminded me of a little story after graduation. One of the professors said, when I saw your dissertation title, I said, I can't believe they graduated this woman at this school. And she said that as a compliment, but I knew what she meant. Yeah, I graduated from a Presbyterian seminary, and I did my dissertation on the psycho-spiritual experiences of African-American Buddhist lesbians. And I'm grateful that they allowed me that freedom. It got me here. So, Tracy, who you've been introduced to, one of the great things that she has done for me, we've been together 20 years, is that she attempts to protect me from myself and you. I said, Tracy, I just want to speak from the heart. And she said, don't do that. So that's my heart. Here are my prepared remarks. Good afternoon, everybody, and I am glad we are all gathered together as a community this afternoon. My name is Ayo, and I've been hired to teach pastoral care and counseling here and direct the interreligious chaplaincy program. And for the last 2.5 to 3 months, I've just been on a high. And I know you can't stay on a high forever without crashing. I feel like I'm going to crash soon, but I'm still on that high where I can't believe that I'm here. I can't believe we're here and that I'm teaching. Wow. I have a long list of people I want to thank, but in the interest of time, I'm going to limit my expressions of gratitude to Tracy, who has supported me in every possible way. And when I say that, I really mean it. Every idea that I've had, she's been there. How can we make that happen? Even the things that she wasn't so sure we should do or I should do, she supported me in that. Thank you. And even coming here from Hotlanta to Minnesota, we've got some adjustments that we'll have to make, and we're going to make them, and we are making them. Okay. Also want to thank one of my Dharma teachers, Gina Sharp, for encouraging me to write an article for Buddha Dharma magazine. And I want to thank the Buddha Dharma and Lion's Roar editors for publishing the article that former United President Barbara Holmes read and then got together with Dr. Tan and gave me a call and encouraged me to apply for the position when it became open. Very grateful. And I see that my cousin is here, Dwayne Coleman. Dwayne and I grew up together, and so coming here and knowing that he was here, it's like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And he's been so wonderful to me and to Tracy, opening himself and his wife up for whatever we need. Thank you, Dwayne. So now I've become a part of you, and you've become a part of me. And now what are we going to do together? Let's find out. So as some of you know, I'm almost 56 years old, having earned my doctorate degree at the tender age of 54. Tender. Okay? In the 2+ months I've been here, I've had about 4 conversations with middle-aged, prospective, and enrolled students about what it means to be middle-aged in pursuing graduate work or even doctorate work. And so I see that there are some older students in the audience today. And to you, I want to say something that you already know, which is some things and some people just get better with age. Okay? Pay attention to the spark and the sparkle within you that yearns to learn, to grow, to give, to educate, to nurture, to listen, to hold, to comfort, to tell the truth, to preach, and allow yourself permission to cultivate that spark so that you sparkle. I mean, really sparkle. Sparkle in a way that people can see your light and feel like, hey, if you can sparkle like that, maybe I can too. Okay? In short, I'm asking you to be the light. So on the road to letting your light and life shine, I also want to ask you to be aware of the forces that can snuff out your light. One of those forces can be the blind adherence to religion. And blind adherence to religion is a subject I believe all seminaries should pay close attention to, because the negative consequences of a blind faith can lead to your premature death. I'm a pastoral counselor, and as a pastoral counselor, I had a client, a woman I'm going to call Kathy, who was a member of the Church of Religious Science, and she was a minister in that church. She was referred to me by a Catholic friend of hers I will call Susan, who had been one of my clients. Susan referred Kathy to me because Kathy believed she could not talk to a counselor in her religious tradition about what she was contemplating. Kathy had let her breast cancer, detected at its earliest stage, grow to stage 4 without medical intervention. And she did this for 2 reasons. 1, she had hoped that prayer and being a good Christian would cure her. And 2, as a minister, she didn't want to undermine her congregants' faith in prayer. In my dissertation research, which was not about women with breast cancer, as you know, I utilized 3 conversation partners, including Black feminist, lesbian poet, and post-Catholic Audre Lorde, who had breast cancer, and Buddhist nun Aya Kema, who also had breast cancer. Susan as Catholic, Kathy as Church of Religious Science, Audrey as post-Catholic with I Ching, non-dualism, and African warrior goddess incorporation. Hers was a complicated spirituality. And Aya as a Theravada Buddhist nun, all women of different faiths and leader-follower positions. All of them together tell us something about how blind adherence to religion can result in death-dealing consequences, but also how the deconstruction of some religious beliefs can lead to life-giving inspiration and motivation. So now, having told you a little bit about Susan and Kathy's belief systems, now I want to turn to Buddhist nun Aya Kema. Aya grew up in Nazi Germany as a secular Jewish girl until she became a refugee. In her adult years in Australia, she had positive encounters with Theravada Buddhist monks. She began practicing Buddhism and later became a nun. In my opinion, she had a nearly blind adherence to her faith, in particular to the teachings on self and no self. But she was not in agreement with the Buddhist monks' misogyny, and that's where she broke with them. As a matter of fact, she is known as primarily the one Buddhist nun who separated herself from the others in order to advocate as a feminist for the nuns who were treated very poorly by the monks. When she was diagnosed with breast cancer, her doctor told her that there had been a woman who lived several years without treatment before she died. Aya said in her autobiography that she avoided treatment for 2 reasons. 1, she was afraid she would be in treatment the rest of her life. And 2, she believed that having this threatening disease intensified her determination to be engaged in spiritual practice. Practices to eliminate clinging and craving, which in Theravada Buddhism guarantees, if you can let go, guarantees that a good practitioner will not return to another round of human suffering after death. Within a few years, the cancer in Aya's breast began to bleed outside her skin. So she decided she would die rather than seek treatment. That is, until some of her students begged her to get care, medical care. Aya had a mastectomy, and she couldn't even say that in her autobiography. It was just too much for her to acknowledge, I guess. But she said she had the surgery not because she wanted to live, but because she wanted to comfort her students who were in the pre-grief or grieving stages. And I asked myself when I read this, knowing what I know about her, really? Did you really have the surgery just for your students' comfort? Having known Kathy and her dilemma between having a life spark and running the risk of letting that life spark be snuffed out on religious grounds, I wonder if what Aya wrote was actually her truth. I know it was the religion's truth, but was it her truth? And speaking of what is true and truth, sometimes the truth is difficult to tell, let alone accept, which brings me to Audre Lorde. Audrey had breast cancer after she learned how to stoke her very fragile life spark. From infancy, her will to live with love was repeatedly under attack from her mother, her sisters, Catholic nuns, and a society steeped in racism, patriarchy, and homophobia. Through a form of narrative therapy called poetry, having friends in high school, removing herself physically from a toxic home environment, and entering psychoanalysis beginning at the age of 18, Audrey learned how to love herself and live a productive life as a librarian, poet, mother, partner, and activist, all before her cancer diagnosis. She had let go of some Catholic beliefs that were invalidating to her embraced I Ching non-dualism in high school, and later integrated African spirituality, incorporating, like in Buddhist Tantra, the one-breasted African goddess Sebulisa. And all of this stoked her life spark as long as she could do this with the support of her women friends, and as long as she was working on behalf of downtrodden people. The combination of all of those things gave her life. Audrey sought conventional treatment with the first diagnosis and alternative treatment for the second diagnosis. So feminist, lesbian, Audrey's truth about cancer recovery post-mastectomy, now this is her truth, was that women are reconstructed primarily to be appealing to men. And she held the American Cancer Society complicit in this patriarchal and heteronormative system. Whether you agree with that or not, the downside is, if you're looking for a perspective like Audre Lorde's, or even looking for her book, if you go to the American Cancer Society and look at their list of resources, her book is not on that list. Okay? Reflecting on Kathy, Aya, and Audrey's life stories has caused me, as a pastoral counselor, to listen differently to religious women with cancer. While listening at an American Psychosocial Oncology Society conference, I heard a statistic that 7% of African American women in the Atlanta area wait more than 3 months to seek treatment after a cancer diagnosis. I wonder how many women, African American or not, wait a long time to receive cancer treatment because of their religion. How many Kathys and Ayas are out there engaging in spiritual bypass by saying that their refusal to seek cancer treatment enhances their spirituality, as if women must make a choice between the two? How many primary care doctors are able to talk with their patients about religion and cancer? I have a hunch that there is a spiritual care gap wider than we've ever known between a woman receiving a breast cancer diagnosis and treatment, because women from body-negating religions cannot, by and large, go to their religious leaders expecting to hear something different than what they've already learned from them, right? Primary care doctors, by and large, are not trained in what I'm calling triage, solution-focused spiritual care. And hospital chaplains tend to only work with people admitted into the hospital. So there's a gap. There are religious women with breast cancer like Kathy and Aya falling unnecessarily into cancer care gaps for lack of appropriate and coordinated spiritual care. Now here's where our work begins. I believe United, through its pastoral spiritual care education programs, can examine the impact of religion on delays in medical care, formulate triage, solution-focused spiritual care for primary care doctors, and suggest ways primary care doctors and chaplains can be engaged in coordinated medical spiritual care to help close those gaps. What will it take for us to do this work, should we choose to do it? United will have to decide, and I think it already has, long before I got here, from the founding in 1962, that it's going to shake up some things in the world of theology. We just had an earthquake. You saw that, right? Demian brought the earthquake, and we're going to continue shaking up things, okay? You okay with that? You ready to shake? All right, okay. Okay. Do we want to challenge people's dogmatic religious beliefs? Oh, absolutely. Okay. Next question. Do we want to expose patriarchal and dualistic myths in religion that hold men are better than women and the soul is better than the body? Yes. Oh, right on. Do we want to be feminist and womanist in orientation as it relates to this topic? Yes. I don't know if you know the theologian Don S. Browning, but he wrote a book called Reviving Christian Humanism. I love this book. He makes a great arguments that have been made by many over the years about the necessity for correlating science, the variety of sciences, and theology. Okay? And that's what we need to keep doing, right? In the Chicago school style, which is now going to be the Minnesota school style, right? The Chicago United Minnesota, okay? We're going to rock it in a radical way. Okay. All right. I went off script, Tracy. I'm sorry. Do we want to be engaged with doctors, primary care doctors, and say, look, you know what to do medically, but it's very likely that a woman who has issues around whether what you're recommending makes sense with their religious beliefs, it's not likely they're going to tell you that unless you ask. And here's a way of asking and a way of listening and a way of coordinating care, because the decisions have to be made quickly. You can't say, talk to your pastoral counselor about that. Decisions have to be made quickly. The demands are great and they are plentiful. Sorry about that. And like every institution, we have our limits, right? We have our limits. So we have to prioritize and plan for the long haul. Will you be in the long haul with me? Yes. We came to the right place. That's good, because I'm willing to be in the long haul with you all. Okay. So our commitment to students, as I see it, is that they be educated and trained in being able to hear the Susans, the Kathys, the Audreys, and the Ayas, the Catholics, the Protestants, the post-Catholics, the non-dualists, the African spiritualists, the Buddhists, and others, in a way that they have never been heard before. And if you're thinking, what about the men? Yes, the men too. You know I've been focused on the women, but the men, the women, them, theirs. I've been challenged, because didn't I say I was almost 56? Yeah. We're beyond male and female now, okay? So we have to get on board. Everybody who is challenged by their religious beliefs and a cancer diagnosis needs something different than what they've been receiving, okay? So, older students, younger students, older faculty, younger faculty, all of us, think about how you're going to continue to cultivate the spark in you in a way that it is seen by others, where others just light up in your presence, where they know, off script again, where they know that God is not just in the books, in the scripture, God is in life. And if you feel life within yourself, then you feel God within yourself. And so if it comes down to scripture versus you, God in scripture versus God in you, and you don't know what to do, you need to talk to somebody who graduated from United. Because we're going to know how to best be with you. We want to make sure that everybody is in good hands, right? No matter the diagnosis, no matter the religious belief, because at the end of the day, it is their decision. And we, as caregivers, have to let go of what we want the outcome to be. That's self-care. And I should also say, I'm working on that, okay? I like for people to see things as I do. And also, I recognize I have to let go of that as well, okay? And I'm working on it. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm glad to be in a community that wants to do this kind of work. I trust that we will get the work done. And as the Buddha and Jesus agreed, okay, I don't know if they ever talked to each other, but they agreed that our task always is to awaken, to wake up, to see things anew, and help other people see things anew. So let's keep our eyes open, and I want to thank you all for your beauty, your presence, and your enthusiasm. Thank you.
Let us continue with the formal part of this installation. As we've heard from the prophetic words of both of our professors, there is a lot to work to do, but these are the people who have come. These are the people and who will recognize, and let us celebrate together. I would like to welcome Reverend Dr. Jeff Sarton, who's the board president, Dr. Lou Zeidner, who's the president of the United Theological Seminary, and Dean Sharon Tan. Please come forward. And Drs. Wheeler and Yetunde, if you could come over here as they ask you the formal questions, and also there's a part for all of us in the community as well.
Io and Demian, you have been duly called to be educators and professors at this seminary. Do you promise to fulfill the responsibilities of your office faithfully and to bring your gifts of knowledge, wisdom, and collegiality to its exercise?
Members of the seminary community, do you promise to receive the leadership of Demian and Io gladly and to support them with collegial affection and vigorous intellectual endeavor?
We do, relying on the wisdom and traditions that have brought us here together.
By the authority invested in me by the Board of Trustees, I declare that Dr. Io Yetunde and Dr. Demian Wheeler are duly installed as professors at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. May this covenant made here today be full and our relationships deepened in the journey we take together.
Let us walk this path together. And I'm going to ask if Dr. Wheeler's and Dr. Yetunde, if Demian and Io could please come forward, just stand right here side by side and face me, and I'll take both your programs. This is an ancient biblical rite that I love. This is conferring blessing about the community that has received you, welcomed you, brought you in, that they also make a covenant with you and profess that how they will be with you, how they will receive you, your words of wisdom, your words of prophetic knowledge, but also that you will be the recipients of these gifts as well. May I ask for Tracy and for Victoria to come forward. This rite is called the laying on of hands. I'm going to ask you all just to join behind them and lay hands on them. Could I have students come forward to continue, and we'll continue to add out. Just place your hands on the person in front of you as we lay this blessing. Yeah, come on up. You can do it from long distance. Exactly. I will take a picture of that so that you know. And then now may I have staff, faculty, the colleagues of both Io and Demian come forward, as well as the leadership, Dr. Tan, Dr. Zeidner, Dr. Sarton. And Ed, is Ed here too? Good, thank you. Please come forward if you can. If you're at your seat, you can raise hands as well. That as we come together, let me offer this blessing on behalf of the community. Oh, board up here too, you. Did I not say board? Board as well, please. Can I have both of your hands? One of your hands. Let us join together in prayer. Gracious and loving one, you have given us this possibility of being together in relation. Orthodoxy is not without orthopraxy. Right belief is right relationship and right practice. That it is this touch, the open palm of love, that is given to us. That we receive one another not with a closed fist, not with punitive action, but more so we receive each other to hear the spark that is here. to hear the wisdom that lives between each of these points of contact. That we are not alone through this, as Io and Demian have come all this way. As family has blessed them on this travel, supported them when it seems completely and utterly odd and twists and turns avail, that they have supported them and loved them through all of this. But that more so, every person along this way that has given them wisdom and life, that has received them, that has offered compassion and received it from them as well, through their scholarship, through their thought, through their time and energy. May you bless each one of these hands, each one of these points of contact, so that we may know that we do not do this by ourselves, but that we are constantly held by these hands, both past, present, and then future. Held and know that we are part of this greater stream, that we have life flowing through us, that we may offer this in truth. A truth that sometimes interrogates, but that always, always is held in love. Let us offer this gift. Let us receive this. Bless both Dr. Yetunde, Dr. Wheeler in this time here, in their gifts that they will offer, in the way that they will be with us. Let us also give them our gifts and this blessing as well. This is our favor, and we ask this in the name of Jesus and all of those who have come before, who have given us this path of love and compassion. We ask this, and let all God's people say together, Amen. Please welcome Dr. Wheelers and Dr. Yetunde. We're going to sing this benediction for us, and this charge for us is how we're going to walk and be together. Andrea will lead us in this song as is printed in our bulletin.
We shall sing only in love. We shall walk only in peace. We shall sing only in love. We shall walk only in peace. We shall sing a song of
Only in love we shall walk.
Sing a song of praise to the earth.
We shall sing.
Thank her for the beauty of the mother.
We shall walk.
Thank her for the beauty
in
of the
peace.
earth.
We shall sing.
Sing a song of praise to the mother.
We shall walk.
Sing a song of praise to the earth.
We shall sing.
Thank her for the beauty that surrounds us.
We shall walk.
Thank her for the
only in
beauty of the earth.
We shall sing.
Sing a song of praise
Only
to the
in
mother.
love we shall walk.
Sing a song of
Only
praise to the
in
earth.
We shall sing.
Thank her for the
Only
beauty
in
that surrounds
love
us.
we shall walk.
Thank her for the
Only
miracle